Imagine this: Superman, the greatest comic book icon of all time, teaming up with his greatest arch-enemy to defeat an even bigger threat. That's exactly what seems to be awaiting us in Man of Tomorrow. With this, James Gunn could be taking the DCU in a whole new direction. After all, he has already hinted at something like this in past interviews. Superman laid the foundation, but now the question is, how will it be built upon? Which villains await us, and which heroes will play a role? Numerous clues are already revealing where things are headed, so stay tuned. Here are the details. The return of Lex Luthor. The situation after Part 1. Superman was able to defeat the villain Lex Luthor in the first movie, but anyone familiar with Luthor knows that a setback like this only makes him more dangerous. Now that he is behind bars, he is likely already plotting his next move, and that could be exactly what leads to an escalation in the next film. James Gunn announced the title Man of Tomorrow on social media and shared an image that immediately caused a stir. Superman side by side with Lex Luthor, and Luthor clad in a large suit of armor. Comic fans instantly recognize the iconic war suit, an exoskeleton that grants him superpowers, energy blasts, and protective shields. Just the thought of seeing this legendary suit on the big screen is a fan's dream come true. The war suit originates from the comics of the 1980s. It symbolizes Luthor's greatest weakness, his envy. He knows he can never defeat Superman with mere intelligence or political influence, so he builds himself a suit of armor that puts him on equal physical footing. On the big screen, it would be a visual spectacle, a duel between Superman and a human opponent in huge high-tech armor. That's blockbuster material. At the same time, it opens up exciting story possibilities. Will they fight each other? Or will an even greater villain force them to face the threat together? It is precisely this moral gray area that makes Luthor so interesting. He is not a one-dimensional villain, but someone who constantly vacillates between megalomania and a wounded ego. And in Man of Tomorrow, he could play the role that challenges Superman the most, not just as an enemy, but also as an unreliable ally. But why do we even think there is another villain waiting for our hero? It's simple. James Gunn recently shared a photo of the finished script. Instead of a classic logo, it featured an illustration of a human head and brain. For many fans, this is an unmistakably clear hint. Brainiac will be the new major antagonist in the next movie. Brainiac is one of Superman's most fascinating enemies. In the comics, he has been reinterpreted time and again, sometimes as a highly intelligent alien, sometimes as a cold computer consciousness, sometimes as a bodiless energy that takes over other beings. But his trademark remains the same. He shrinks entire cities and collects them like trophies. This is especially tragic for Superman because Brainiac also stole Kandor, the capital of Krypton. In Superman the Animated Series, Brainiac was an artificial intelligence from Krypton that prioritized its own survival above all else. In the comics of the 1980s, he appeared as a green-skinned alien with a mechanical body, and in games like Injustice 2, he was portrayed as a ruthless conqueror whose spaceship alone posed a threat to entire planets. In some stories, Brainiac's plan even goes so far as to shrink the entire Earth and add it to his collection. This makes him not just an enemy of Superman, but a threat to the entire Justice League. It is precisely this cosmic scale that Man of Tomorrow could use to lead the new DCU into galactic realms for the first time. So why is Brainiac such an interesting choice for a movie? Because he challenges Superman on both a personal and cosmic level. He is not just an opponent who comes at him with brute force, but one who strikes with intelligence, strategy, and near-limitless technological superiority. Superman cannot just beat him up, he has to outsmart him, and that could be crucial for the story. We hope James Gunn doesn't simply portray Brainiac as a classic villain, but rather as a multi-layered antagonist, a mix of threat and tragedy. After all, Brainiac is more than just a destroyer. He is a collector of knowledge, a being who believes he can save the galaxy through control. If the film emphasizes this aspect, it could lead to a philosophical conflict between two worldviews: hope versus rationality, humanity versus perfection. Visually, this would also have enormous potential. Imagine a futuristic city trapped inside a glass sphere floating in space, a macabre museum of countless cultures. Such imagery could give Man of Tomorrow the look of a true sci-fi epic, one that might just as easily have come from Guardians of the Galaxy. One should also not underestimate the role of Supergirl. She made a brief appearance at the end of the first film. However, she is not just a supporting character, but is set to play a major role. According to James Gunn, she is one of the 4 pillars of the DCU, alongside Superman, Wonder Woman, and Batman. Her own movie, Supergirl, is scheduled to be released in June 2026. Man of Tomorrow could be the perfect opportunity to deepen her relationship with her famous cousin. Her connection to Superman, her own values, and her often harsher perspective on humanity could significantly enrich the film's dynamic. While Superman often embodies the ideal of hope, Supergirl represents a more pragmatic, sometimes even radical viewpoint in many stories. These differences could lead to exciting conflicts in the movie, especially if the threat from Brainiac or Luthor forces them to work together. One thing is clear: James Gunn loves ensemble films. Be it Guardians of the Galaxy or The Suicide Squad, he has consistently shown that he knows how to bring many characters to life at once. Superman already featured a large cast of characters. Additionally, Gunn has emphasized that Man of Tomorrow should not be seen as a direct sequel. It is a bit more complicated than that. He hinted that it's less a film about Superman alone and more a larger story involving multiple characters. This aligns with theories about Luthor, Brainiac, and Supergirl. At the same time, it leaves the door open for both familiar and new faces, maybe even the debut of the new Wonder Woman. On top of that, there is a close connection to the series Peacemaker. Gunn has already revealed that the second season will lead directly into the events of Man of Tomorrow. This means characters we know from the series could suddenly show up alongside Superman, or get in his way. However, not everyone is likely to appreciate such a close integration of movies and series. The MCU was already often criticized for the fact that, eventually, it becomes difficult to keep track of everything. We are curious to see whether James Gunn will have a better knack for handling this. And that brings us to perhaps the most important point: the big strategy behind Man of Tomorrow. When James Gunn and Peter Safran took over as the new heads of DC, they made one thing clear: Superman will be the heart of the universe. This suggests that all DCU films are meant to fit together into a harmonious whole, unlike the old DCEU. That's also why the so-called DC Elseworlds label was introduced, which includes the Joker films and the Batman. It encompasses everything that doesn't fit into the main DCU. What is surprising, however, is that James Gunn is taking a slightly different approach when it comes to the movie Clayface. The Batman spin-off is explicitly not part of the Elseworlds label, yet it is intended to be a proper horror film. Gunn explains this by saying that every DCU film should feel fresh, and that audiences should never be quite sure what to expect. To us, that doesn't sound very consistent. What does this mean for Man of Tomorrow, which is not meant to be a traditional sequel to Superman? Should we expect an ensemble film in the style of the Avengers, explicitly introducing new characters to the DCU? Is James Gunn aiming for a different vibe than in Superman? It definitely remains exciting. Man of Tomorrow will be the litmus test for James Gunn's entire vision. If Superman works as the centerpiece, DC can finally take the clear direction fans have been missing for years. The movie is scheduled to hit theaters on July 9th, 2027. What do you think? Is Superman a good centerpiece for the DCU? And would Brainiac make a suitable new villain? We look forward to reading your comments.